The door to the penthouse suite burst open. A woman in her 30s, dressed in Chanel and desperation, walked out with her eyes fixed straight ahead. She didn't cry. She didn't look back. She was the third child psychologist that month. Inside the apartment, two 8-year-old girls sat at a marble table in complete silence. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that felt like a held breath before a scream. Victoria Sterling stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Manhattan sprawling beneath her like a kingdom she was slowly losing control of. She pressed her palm against the glass. It was cold. 3 months, she whispered to herself. 3 months and nothing. The girls, Emma and Lily, didn't move. They never did anymore. Ever since their father died, they had perfected the art of disappearing while still being in the room. It was 5:47 in the morning when Deshaun Thompson stood in his kitchen and did what he had done every single day for the past 4 years. He made a lunchbox. The kitchen was small, cramped, the kind of place where the appliances hummed a little too loudly at night, where you could hear your neighbors arguing through the walls, where love had to be loud just to compete with the noise. Deshaun was 41, dark skin, lined with the kind of fatigue that sleep didn't fix. His hands moved with the muscle memory of ritual, a ritual that had started long before his daughter was even born. He pulled out his daughter's lunchbox, pink, with her name written in silver marker by a careful hand. His hand. He opened it slowly. Inside, he placed a peanut butter and jelly sandwich cut into triangles, not squares. Aisha hated squares. An orange, peeled and segmented, a small container of hummus and baby carrots, a napkin folded into thirds, and at the bottom, a note on a scrap of construction paper. "You are braver than you believe. Dad." He had learned to write these notes from her mother. 4 years ago, when Keisha was still here, before the aneurysm, before the hospital, before the silence that never left the apartment. Keisha used to write them with markers, with glitter, with love that felt like it would never run out. After she died, Deshaun tried to match her handwriting. He studied the notes she'd left behind, on the bathroom mirror, in birthday cards, on the inside of old lunchboxes he couldn't throw away. He could never quite get it right, but he kept trying. Deshaun set the lunchbox on the counter and waited for his daughter to wake up. Aisha was 7 years old. She still believed in the goodness of people. She still thought her father was the strongest person alive. He held on to that belief like it was the only thing keeping him afloat. When she came into the kitchen, hair braided in tight cornrows with pink beads at the end, she didn't say good morning. She just wrapped her arms around his waist and held on. He didn't ask what was wrong. He just held her back. After a moment, she let go and sat at the small table. He set the lunchbox in front of her. "Thank you, Daddy," she said, reading the note inside. Her voice was small, smaller than it used to be. "You've got this, baby girl," he said, kissing the top of her head. But he wasn't sure if he was talking to her or to himself. Deshaun had worked at Sterling Tower for 11 months. He was part of the new facilities team, the expanded crew that kept the building running, invisible, essential, unnoticed. He started his shift at 6:30 a.m. The tower was empty then, 52 stories of glass and steel and silence. He pushed his cart down the hallway on the 23rd floor, where the executive suites were. This floor was where the real money lived, where decisions got made that affected thousands of people. Deshaun cleaned it like he cleaned everywhere else, with care, with attention, with the quiet dignity of a man who understood that all work had value. At 8:15 a.m., he was wiping down the marble around Victoria Sterling's suite when he heard it. "Sit down," a voice cut through the heavy oak door. "Sit down and listen to me." Deshaun kept moving, not his business, not his place. "You are 8 years old," the voice continued, sharp, breaking. 8. And you have managed to alienate every single person I've hired to help you. Do you understand what that means? Do you? He heard silence, then crying, not from an adult, from children. Deshaun stopped moving. His hand, which had been reaching for a smudge on the wall, froze mid-air. The door flew open. A woman in her late 30s, styled like an advertisement for success, stumbled out. Her makeup was running. Her hands shook as she fumbled with her briefcase. She didn't look at Deshaun as she rushed past. He watched her disappear into the elevator. Then he turned back toward the open office door. Through the gap, he could see two small figures, girls, identical, standing perfectly still. Their uniforms were immaculate. Their hair was immaculate. Everything about them was immaculate except their eyes, which looked like they had seen something too heavy for eyes that young to hold. Victoria Sterling stood in front of them, her phone already in her hand, already dialing. Deshaun turned back to his cart. He pushed it down the hallway, but he couldn't stop seeing those eyes. He knew those eyes. He saw them in the mirror sometimes. The eyes of someone grieving so hard they forgot how to live. 2 days later, Deshaun was mopping the bathroom on the 23rd floor when Emma, the girl whose eyes he couldn't forget, came in. She didn't see him at first. She locked herself in a stall and cried so quietly that he almost missed it. Almost. But Deshaun knew every shade of silence, and this one was the sound of a child breaking. He waited. He didn't leave. He didn't interfere. He just waited until the crying stopped, until he heard the toilet flush. Until she came out and washed her hands with soap, she worked into a fury, scrubbing like she was trying to clean something off that wouldn't come off. "Hey," he said quietly. Emma jumped. She looked at him with the wariness of a child who had learned not to trust adults. "You okay, sweetheart?" he asked. She didn't answer. She just looked at him, really looked at him, like she was trying to figure out if he was safe. "It's okay to not be okay," Deshaun said. "Sometimes people act like you have to be perfect all the time, but you don't. You're allowed to be sad." Emma's lip quivered. "My sister doesn't cry," she said quietly. "Lily says crying is for babies." "Your sister is scared," Deshaun said. "That's what people do when they're scared. They get mean. They pretend they don't feel anything." "How do you know that?" Emma asked. Deshaun leaned against the sink. "Because I do it too sometimes." Emma studied him for another moment. Then she asked, "Did someone die for you?" The question hit him like a punch to the chest. It took him a moment to answer. "Yeah," he said. "My wife, 4 years ago." Emma nodded slowly. "My dad," she said. 2 years ago, cancer." Deshaun felt his throat tighten. "That's really hard, baby girl. That's the hardest thing." "Mommy says we need to get over it," Emma said. "That grief is just weakness." Deshaun shook his head. "Your mommy is lying, not on purpose. She's just scared. Grief isn't weakness. It's love. It's the price you pay for having loved someone so much that losing them breaks you." Emma started crying again, not the silent kind, the real kind. Deshaun pulled her into a gentle hug, and she held on like he was the only solid thing in a world that had turned liquid. "What's your name?" Emma asked, her face buried in his chest. "Deshaun," he said. "Deshaun Thompson." The next morning, Deshaun was called to the security office. His supervisor, Bill, didn't say much. Just, "They want to see you upstairs." Deshaun's stomach dropped. He had been through this before. After Keisha died, there had been questions. Questions about whether he was fit to be a parent, whether his grief made him unstable, whether he should really be raising a child alone. He had passed every investigation, every interview, every background check. But the questions never really stopped. They just got quieter. The security office was on the 48th floor. 2 men waited inside. One was the head of security. The other wore a suit that cost more than Deshaun made in a month. "We need to ask you about an incident in the bathroom yesterday," the suit said. His name was Hendricks. He worked in corporate affairs. "You were alone with one of Mrs. Sterling's daughters." "She was upset," Deshawn said. "I made sure she was okay." "That's not your job," Hendricks said. "Being human is everyone's job," Deshawn replied quietly. Hendricks leaned back. "Do you understand how this looks? A man alone in a bathroom with a child who is not his own?" Deshawn understood perfectly. He had spent 4 years understanding the looks, the assumptions, the whispers, the way people's faces changed when they found out he was a single father, the way they wondered if he was capable, if he was safe. "I was helping," Deshawn said. "That's not your place," Hendricks said. "Mrs. Sterling has professionals for that." Deshawn stood up. "Are we done?" "For now," the security chief said, and there was something almost apologetic in his voice. That afternoon, Deshawn received a text from Aisha's school. "Please call us." His heart stopped, but when he called, it was nothing. A routine check-in. Aisha was fine. She was always fine. The school just wanted to make sure he was managing okay as a single parent. They had resources, counseling, support groups. He thanked them and hung up. But something inside him had shifted. A door had opened that he had been trying to keep closed. He thought about quitting, about finding work somewhere else, somewhere safer, somewhere where his presence wouldn't be questioned. That night, he made Aisha's lunch the way he always did, but his hands shook as he cut the sandwich, as he folded the napkin, as he wrote the note. "Stay strong. Dad loves you." And he wondered if that was enough, if his love was enough, if he was enough. Victoria Sterling called him to her office the next morning. He rode the elevator with his heart in his throat. The office was exactly what he expected: cold, expensive, impersonal. Victoria sat behind a desk that looked like it had been carved from a single slab of obsidian. "Mr. Thompson," she said, not looking up from her computer. "Please sit." He sat. "I understand you had a conversation with my daughter," Victoria said. "Yes, ma'am." She needed a tutor, not a confidant. Deshawn said nothing. Victoria finally looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something in her face besides anger. He saw exhaustion, real, bone-deep exhaustion. "I have tried everything," she said quietly. "Every expert, every specialist, every approach, and nothing works. My daughters are destroying every relationship I try to build for them. They're self-sabotaging. They're grieving in ways that are inconvenient. They're grieving in ways that are honest," Deshawn said. Victoria's eyes flashed. "Excuse me?" "They lost their father," Deshawn said. His voice was steady now. "They're 8 years old and they lost their father. You're trying to fix them, trying to make them get over it, is just making them feel like their grief is wrong, like their pain is inconvenient." Victoria stood up. She walked to the window. "You lost someone," she said. It wasn't a question. "My wife," Deshawn said, 4 years ago. And I'm not going to lie to you. I still have days where I can barely get out of bed, but I get up anyway, because I have a daughter who needs me to." "I'm doing this for them," Victoria said. Her voice cracked. "Everything I do for them." "I know," Deshawn said. "But what they need isn't a fixed mother. They need a real one. They need to know that it's okay to be broken sometimes." Victoria turned around. She looked at him for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised him. "I want you to spend time with them, outside of work. 2 hours, 3 days a week. I'll pay you. I don't care what it costs." Deshawn felt his stomach clench. "That's not a good idea. People are already talking." "Let them talk," Victoria said. "My daughters need to know that grief is survivable, that you can lose someone and still learn how to live. I need them to see that." Deshawn thought about Aisha. about the way she held on to him in the morning like she was afraid he would disappear, about the notes he wrote her every single day. "I have a daughter," he said. "She's 7. She's my whole world." "Bring her," Victoria said, "if that's what it takes." The first time Deshawn brought Aisha to Victoria's home, she was nervous. "Will they be nice?" Aisha asked as they rode the subway. "They're sad," Deshawn said. "Sometimes when people are sad, they forget how to be nice. But we're going to help them remember." Aisha nodded seriously. At 7, she had already learned that her job was to take care of her father's heart. Victoria answered the door herself. She looked different outside of her suit, more human, more like someone who was drowning and didn't know how to ask for help. "This is Aisha," Deshawn said. Aisha looked up at Victoria with the careful assessment of a child who had learned to read people quickly. "Hi, Miss Sterling," Aisha said politely. "Please call me Victoria," Victoria said, and something in her voice shifted. "Emma and Lily are in the living room." The twins were sitting on opposite ends of a white couch, not looking at each other. When Aisha walked in, they both looked up. Emma smiled. Lily didn't. Aisha sat down on the floor, as far from them as she could get. She pulled out a small stuffed animal from her backpack, a lion named King, and began making it talk in a high-pitched voice. "Did you know I'm the bravest animal in the whole world?" the lion said. "Because I'm brave enough to be scared." Emma laughed. Actually laughed. It was the first genuine sound Deshawn had heard from her in weeks. Lily watched Aisha with the kind of careful interest she usually reserved for things she was suspicious of. After an hour, Emma asked if she could hold King the lion. "Only if you tell him something true," Aisha said. Emma took the lion. She held it close and whispered something in its ear. Deshawn couldn't hear what she said, but he saw her shoulders relax, saw the tightness in her face ease. When she gave the lion back, she was crying. But this time, it was the good kind of crying, the kind that heals. Lily watched all of this, watched her sister cry, watched Aisha comfort her without trying to fix her, watched the wall she had built start to crack. At the end of the afternoon, Lily came up to Deshawn. "My dad used to work a lot," she said. "He used to leave early and come home late, and sometimes I was angry at him for that." Deshawn knelt down. "That makes sense," he said. "Then he got sick," Lily continued, "and I wished I could have him back, even if he had to work all the time." "Grief is complicated," Deshawn said. "It's okay to be angry and sad at the same time." Lily nodded. Then she did something unexpected. She hugged him. For 6 weeks, everything was good. Deshawn brought Aisha 3 afternoons a week. They made lunchboxes together. They drew pictures. They sat in comfortable silence. Victoria learned to let her daughters feel what they felt. Emma started talking about her father. Lily started laughing. Then the anonymous email arrived. Deshawn was summoned to the security office again. This time, there was a document printed out. His wife's death investigation. A note about questions that were raised at the time. An insinuation that was vile and clear. "Someone sent this to Mrs. Sterling's board," the security chief said, "and to our director of HR." "That's not true," Deshawn said quietly. "I know," the security chief said, and he sounded like he meant it. "But it doesn't matter. People are talking, and if people keep talking, it could affect your custody." Deshawn felt the world tilt. "You should step back," the security chief said, "just for a while, until this blows over." Deshawn left the building on autopilot. He picked up Aisha from school. He made her lunch. He wrote the note with shaking hands. "Daddy loves you, always." That night, he got a call from Victoria. "Don't you dare quit," she said. Her voice was ice. "Don't you dare let them scare you away." "I can't risk Aisha," Deshawn said. "And I can't risk my daughters," Victoria replied. "They've already lost their father. I won't let them lose you, too." Part 9. The Reckoning. Victoria called an emergency board meeting. James Hendricks walked in with the confidence of a man who thought he had already won. He had found a weapon, a single father with a questionable past. He was going to use it to show that Victoria Sterling was unfit to run the company, that she lacked judgment, that grief had made her careless. He was wrong. Victoria stood up. She didn't have notes. She didn't need them. "My husband died 2 years ago," she said. Her voice filled the room. "And I was so afraid of falling apart that I fell apart anyway. I was so afraid of not being strong that I became cold. I became the kind of mother who hired people to fix her children instead of being the kind of mother who actually showed up." Hendricks shifted in his seat. "Then a man I had never really seen, a man I walked past every day without noticing, showed my daughters something revolutionary," Victoria continued. "He showed them that you can be broken and still be whole, that grief is not weakness, that the most important work in the world isn't done in boardrooms. It's done in small moments, in lunchboxes, in notes, in showing up." She looked directly at Hendricks. "You tried to use his grief as a weapon. You tried to weaponize love, and I want you to know that there is a special place in hell for people like you." The room was silent. "Deshaun Thompson will continue to work with my daughters," Victoria said. "And if anyone has a problem with that, I suggest you find a new company to work for." Hendricks stood up. He walked out. 3 others followed, but the rest of the room erupted in applause. Victoria didn't smile. She just sat back down and gathered her papers, understanding that she had finally stopped fighting the wrong battle. 1 year later, Aisha and the twins stood in the kitchen together, making lunchboxes. Emma was in charge of the apples. Lily arranged the crackers. Aisha cut the sandwiches into perfect triangles. They worked in comfortable silence, the kind that only happens after you've learned to grieve together. "Do you miss her?" Aisha asked Deshaun. She was talking about his wife. "Every single day," Deshaun said. "But I'm grateful for the years I had, and I'm grateful that you're here. And I'm grateful for Emma and Lily." "Do you think she knows?" Aisha asked. "That we're okay?" Deshaun looked at his daughter, at the twins, at Victoria, watching from the doorway with tears in her eyes. "Yeah, baby girl," he said. "I think she knows." He thought about the photograph on his kitchen table, his wife's smile, the way she used to make lunchboxes with love written in every detail, the way she had taught him that love wasn't about grand gestures, it was about showing up every single day, even when it hurt, even when the world told you to be invisible, even when grief made you question whether you were strong enough to carry it. You showed up. You made the lunch. You wrote the note. You let people see you breaking, because in the breaking, there was room for healing. And sometimes the person who saved you wasn't the one you expected. Sometimes it was the one you never saw at all.